What do you say, everybody? A kind of a pop-up show to just test run the new call-in system and talk to you guys about Cubs baseball. We're going to try to do this on a more normal basis, but I just wanted to just pop up here on Memorial Day before the Cubs take on the Brewers, and obviously just talk a little bit of Cubs baseball with you today as the Cubs try to bounce back after what has really been a tough stretch. Getting all of their players back, but not getting any production out of those guys. What do? Do you make some moves, designate assignment? Maybe some of the guys that are on the bench that aren't producing, bring up some of the young guys. We saw the young guys. It wasn't like anyone was, knocking the cover off of the ball, but at the same time, really important to have those young players in there, the energy that they bring. Would you have Pete Crow Armstrong hitting home runs in the minor leagues? You saw the epic at bat, I'm sure, that he had for the Iowa Cubs, or, do you think that he belongs in the minor leagues? Let's talk about that. Craig Counsell, according to Patrick Mooney at The Athletic, is going to have a say on what the Cubs do at the deadline. I think that's interesting within itself, but Counsell's almost like an extra front office guy as the team manager. So why not take advantage of that? And do you expect the Cubs to make a lot of deals at the deadline? So all of that as the Cubs get set to take on Milwaukee today at 3:10. And I don't want to use the term must win, but it would be nice to start winning again, because the team is going straight down. And all of a sudden the Cardinals, after losing two tight games there, are now just a game behind you, for third place. So all of that stuff, guys, again, comment section. But if you want to call in, we will take the calls today, test out our system. And then, you know what? Let me throw this up here too. Before I even go to the break. I mean, Memorial Day is about honoring all of those who gave their life for our country. And I think that you guys might know this. Maybe you don't. I named my son after one of my best friends in college who was killed in Iraq. So I think you guys get it. We love those guys, and always thinking about them, the people that serve our country. So if you guys got a Memorial Day story, hey, jump on with that too. Would love to hear, that kind of stuff too. So I'm going to put the phone number up after the open. Let's get this thing started. Let's talk a little Cubs baseball Memorial Day. Go Cubs. All right, what do you say, guys? There's the number, 708-381-2100. If you want to call in and talk Cubs baseball right now. I mean, this is just a pop-up show that we decided to do and basically just kind of chew the fat a little bit around this team, which is so frustrating right now. But again, happy Memorial Day, everybody, and thanks for hanging out. Cubs and Brewers today. And this is a game for the Cubs that I feel like is really important. Justin Steele, 0-2, a 5.68 ERA. I feel like Justin Steele is getting right back to being Justin Steele again, but he's not quite there yet. Javier Assad pitched yesterday. I didn't think he pitched poorly, gave up a couple of home runs to Paul Goldschmidt, and a lot of players have, a lot of pitchers have done that over the years. But, it's tough, man. I mean, it's tough because when things aren't going right, 4 runs is a lot. If you have a good team, 4 runs, you make up those 4 runs. The Cubs right now just are not getting. All right, so let's just kind of lay this out. The offense has been terrible. Cody Bellinger, since he's been back, hasn't really done much. And maybe he rushed back from the rib injury. It's not like he was hitting the cover off of the ball before that, but I felt like he was just about to get hot and he was starting to really see it and swing it before he had the collision with the wall at Wrigley. And he hasn't been good. Seiya Suzuki at the beginning of the year could have been arguably the best player in baseball. He gets hurt with a hamstring, which that's another topic that we could get into. Why are the Cubs having so many players go down with hamstrings? Makes no sense to me. Is there a correlation? Is it the way that they train? Is it the way that baseball is these days? Or, I don't know. I mean, is it just bad luck? But I think that's a legitimate question to ask. So you got that going. Ian Happ's been, hamstring, remember, at the beginning of the year, spring training. Really didn't even play that much. Had a couple of home runs yesterday. That was good. And is hopefully that him turning the corner, because he just hasn't been hitting. He's been seeing a steady diet of breaking balls. He hasn't hit any of them. He's been pretty much an automatic out until last night. So it was good to see him get going. But do the Cubs have to play those guys every day? Mike Tauchman's been pretty good. You got to find a spot for him. Could Alexander Canario, could Pete Crow Armstrong with regular playing time help the team? And I know this. Look, I'm going to get to this, Christian, because I've been saying this to you guys since spring training. So just hold it. I haven't gotten there yet. I think that going to the infield, when I look at what's going on with the infield right now, that Christopher Morel has not been, it wasn't like he was Babe Ruth or anything, but he was hitting a lot of home runs. And even though he wasn't, he was, batting, in the low 200s, he was still a really tough out. And then he found that pitch off of his foot against the Braves. And I think he's out there right now struggling because of that. Remember, the next day he got hit on the foot. He just hasn't been the same. Dansby Swanson hasn't hit at all. Nico's been pretty consistent, which he seems to always be. Got off to a slow start, but he's been pretty good. Michael Busch has been struggling. He had the stretch where he hit all the home runs, and then he's been struggling. You put Patrick Wisdom at first base. He does exactly what Patrick Wisdom always seems to do, and that's strike out. Did that 3 times yesterday. His defense is scary over at first base. Anytime he's got a glove on, I'm worried about it. So those are some of the topics right now. 708-381-2100. If you guys want to jump in. Rick, jump on the number. I'll put it in the comments section too, but I have it on here. But I want to talk to you guys. And this is something that I think we're going to do more of is, start taking calls, because I read the comments section and I got to tell you, man, you guys are very educated baseball audience. And, I feel like this should be something that we do a lot of. So, we'll see how it goes today. But, as we kind of look at just the Cubs baseball channel and where we want to take it, I think that this is an area where we can definitely grow is to take calls. So the number's on the screen right now, and I put it in the comment section. So, but then you get the catcher. And I've told you, there's not a whole lot of help in the organization. I've never been a Miguel Amaya super fan. I think he's okay. I get it. He comes from your organization. I probably would have promoted Kurt Casale instead of letting him go to San Francisco. Yan Gomes has just not been hitting this year. I mean, he looks like a 37-year-old. He just hasn't been hitting the ball. So you're getting zero production now from the catcher spot. And it's like, well, when you're in other parts of your team are hitting and producing, it doesn't matter. But now that like no one's hitting, you've got to, I guess, find some production. And I think that that's kind of where this team is. And I'm wondering like how Craig Counsell and the Cubs are going to get this thing turned around. I've got so many questions about, first off, it just seemed like Cody Bellinger came back from cracked ribs, fractured ribs or whatever pretty fast. And I get it. You want to come back, you want to help the team, but is that still bothering him? The swing looks pretty good. He looks healthy. He just, when he hits the ball, it's just not going anywhere, and maybe that's a sign of bad luck as much as anything else, but you got to get some production from him. Right. Always good to see you, Bernie. I agree. I wanted the Cubs to sign Wilson Contreras. I heard, that David Ross wasn't really a big Wilson Contreras fan. That obviously, that could be true or not, but it's the problem to me is if you're not going to sign him, then you have to have some kind of a contingency plan. The Cubs have not drafted catching. There's no catchers in the system that you look at and go, hey, this is a premier prospect. All your premier prospects are infielders and outfielders. You got a couple pitchers, one of them being Cade Horton. But for the most part, you're talking about a lot of an abundance of outfielders, some infield help, and and then that's kind of where we are. Let's take a call. This is exciting. Our first call. See if this thing works. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, Mick, this is Rick from Mattoon, Illinois.
Hey, what's up, Rick? Can everyone hear? Rick, let me just
Hey,
ask
I'm
if
doing
everybody
great,
can hear
Mick.
you.
It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thanks, brother.
Thanks for taking my call. Saturday night, it was a beautiful night. I'd had tickets for Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and kind of dispersed them as Christmas presents. And of course, Friday night got rained out. And then last night was kind of a debacle, but Sunday was great. I love Wrigley, don't get me wrong, but Busch, for me, it's less than 2 hours to the ballpark. Easy parking in, easy parking out. It's a great time. The Cardinal fans treat the Cubs fans with respect. It's a whole lot different than the Cubs-Sox series. It goes on both at the north side and the south side. But that isn't why I'm calling. I'm happy that I got to see a game, even though it was a loss, but there just doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency on this team. And you are a minor league expert. I got one question and then one suggestion. And the question would be, the minor league system, is there anybody even close that can do catching at the major league level in our minor league system? The other comment that I have is that PCA, the last I heard, was 10 for 19 since he'd been sent down. He's not eligible to come up until the 30th. Nobody's hitting on money players. Swanson, Bellinger, Suzuki, the big money guys are not producing offensively. We don't have any fire. Nico once in a while, but you need somebody with some grit, some attitude, and PCA brings that to the field with him every day. PCA becomes our full-time center fielder. You DH Belly, playing at first. I know this may not be a popular move, but if we need Busch to get some at-bats, move him to third. Let Morel DH. Please give me your opinions, your ideas on that. I love you guys. I'm an everydayer. Keep it going. Go Cubs, man.
Hey, thanks, Rick. Thanks. Really appreciate it, man. And I'm going to get into all this stuff, but awesome to have you and talk to you in person, man. All right, let me start with this.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, brother. All right, let me start with this, okay? Catching prospects in the organization. Pablo Aliendo is the Cubs' best catching prospect. I don't know that he's there yet. Moises Ballesteros is a higher-ranked prospect, but I think needs to do more work as far as maybe his actual physical body. I think he's got to kind of slim up a little bit in some areas, but he's got the best bat of the group. I mean, he can hit, like he's got soft hands. He's able to, basically at the plate, he can do a lot more than most of the other guys. But behind the plate, I don't know that you could put him behind the dish at the big league level, Moises Ballesteros, and be comfortable with what he can do as a catcher, but I don't think he's that far off. I just think for him, I think that he's just got to get a little more athletic with his body. And I think that's a fair criticism of someone that I think a lot of, man. I like a guy that can put the ball in play. And this day and age, pitching's dominating, right? So you got to have guys that can hit, and he can do that. I just don't think he's ready physically yet, Rick. Now, Pablo Aliendo's a really interesting guy. He's a prospect too, kind of further down the list, but I don't feel like he's ready either. Now, I like him better than I like Amaya. And I think he's, kind of a maybe slightly better hitter. I think defensively behind the plate, I liked him a little bit better than Amaya. Amaya has like that smooth look to him. People kind of like the way that he kind of has that, like, I mean, his catch and throw looks smooth and all that. But I just, as a player, I mean, I've never been that impressed with him. And you guys know Yan Gomes is just so old right now. The Cubs are going to have to draft a catcher, an elite catcher in the draft, or they're going to have to trade for one. And I don't think that's a big secret, because I don't feel like of all of these guys, you have your catcher of the future. I think you have pieces like Pablo would be a good backup. Miguel Amaya right now, in my mind's a backup. And I don't feel like they really have the guy that's going to be the next Wilson Contreras, right? And I've seen him come through. You're right. I've been around a long time. I've seen those guys come through. Even guys like Steve Clevenger that you're watching, you're going, okay, this guy's going to be a big leaguer. He's a left-hander, left-handed hitter, right-handed thrower. He can catch and throw the ball. I mean, he's pretty good. I don't even see anybody on that level right now. Wellington Castillo, I remember him coming through and being like, okay, yeah, Welly has it. Victor Caratini, seeing him turn the corner. And what you hope is that Victor Caratini was kind of that guy who you saw make the move from being a, kind of a guy like a Pablo Aliendo or a Moises Ballesteros to being, someone that you could count on at the big league level. There was just a switch that he hit, and the effort got a lot better. His ability to catch, the hands, the throws, all that stuff. And so I feel like those two guys have that potential, and I don't know. Maybe Amaya can continue to get better too. I just have never been, he's never been one of those guys to me that I think you can really count on. I think he's a backup, and that's what he's doing right now. So catching in the organization is the weakest thing that the Cubs have right now. And that's not anything that anybody that covers the Cubs knows, that doesn't know. I mean, it's obvious. They just haven't invested in it. They're going to have to invest in it to get that guy of the future. Now, Hollywood Pete needs to return, Rick. I don't know why, and you know this from watching me every day. Why the hell did he ever go down in the first place? If you're going to bring up Luis Vazquez, then play him. But he's not even playing. I mean, it feels like the same exact thing last year with Canario. It's like, look, man, if you're going to have these guys, play them, and if not, don't play them. But Pete Crow Armstrong does so many things that this team needs. And last year I thought that he was going to bring it, and some of you guys killed me in the comment section when he did not play well. And I kept telling you he can play. And it doesn't feel like this team has a sense of urgency right now. It feels like they're swimming and they can't keep their head above water. He's a spark player. Remember the game they lost to the Pirates, but they brought him in and he stole second base, in the ninth inning with ease, and now he's in scoring position. Now all you need is a single and you tie the game because they're not throwing him out at the plate. What is it, from first to third faster than any other player in the league this year. His defense is better than Bellinger. How many times do you see balls go in the gap that he doesn't catch, but that he's already behind whoever's about to catch it, waiting, like if they don't get there? That moving him down to me was a bad idea. And I would have had him and Vazquez up. And now I don't know how you would have done that. Maybe you designate, Nick Madrigal or something, but he's the type of player that can do other things besides just come up to the plate and go 10 for 16 or whatever. How about they're throwing at him down in Iowa? The guy throws one behind him, throws one over his head, and then and his manager, Marty Peavy, old Peevster, gets thrown out of the game, and then he hits a home run, and he drops the bat and looks at everybody like, hey, you gonna hit me? Next time hit me, because this is what's going to happen. He's got a lot of that Javi Baez in him, where he just rises to those occasions. This team needs that kind of fire, and they don't have it without him, and maybe if you bring him back and you need to get him in at bat, I'm not sitting here arguing with Rick on that idea that maybe you put him in center field. Michael Busch hasn't produced. Cody Bellinger, it's not like he's been much better lately, but they've got to figure out something because no one's hitting. And at least with Pete Crow Armstrong's speed, He's able to kind of do things with his legs that other guys can't do. I mean, he doesn't have to hit the ball hard to turn it into a double or a triple. If he gets on first base with a walk, the way that these bags are, the way that you can't throw to first base anymore, he's going to be able to steal, and there's not much that anyone can do about it. I mean, it's up to the pitchers really to hold him on at first, because the catchers, if he gets a good jump, don't really have a chance. And honestly, holding guys on isn't even an art like it used to be. I mean, think about back in the day. I mean, if you didn't hold runners on against St. Louis, they're going to steal their way around the same way. So the lines are open right now at 708-381-2100. Shout out to Anthony Pasquale for doing a great job on the show this morning. And make sure that you guys give him a thumbs up and a lot of love for helping on the channel. I mean, building this thing, first it was, it's just like you're by yourself, and now you got somebody else to talk some Cubs baseball with. And honestly, I want to do more of this stuff right here, guys. And that's kind of what, why I threw the phone line up, because I want to hear from you, because I read your comments every day, and honestly, I learn a lot. And I've spent my adult life around baseball, and I still don't know it all. I don't know if I ever will. And I think that's what makes baseball so much different than other sports too, is that you can't really ever get it all figured out. It's like you try, but then all of a sudden something happens. You're like, man, I never saw that coming, or, hey, look at this. So, so anyway, that's why I wanted to jump on here. What do you guys think about this? What do you think about this? Patrick Mooney says that Craig Counsell will have an input at the MLB trade deadline. And I feel like with Jed Hoyer that he really has relied on Craig Counsell's opinions on a lot of subjects, because Craig Counsell, what makes him really such a seasoned baseball guy is that he did the other stuff. He did the scouting, he's in the front office. He was, a great player, but a guy who really had to go out there and earn it, as a player. It didn't come easy to him. And then now, as a manager, we saw it in Milwaukee. It's kind of the same thing with the Cubs. It's like being able to, jump up there and come up with ideas looking ahead. And that's been his thing, like being able to kind of look ahead, and they call it like he's able to look around corners, I wonder what that's going to mean though at the trade deadline. And honestly, that's kind of an area where, I thought that that's a good idea. If you're the manager and you're a guy who knows what's in the organization, because he pays attention to that, spring training, I saw him talking to some of the scouts. I saw him talking with, one guy that I absolutely love, the guy, Alex Suarez, who's in international scouting, known him for a long time. And I kind of walk up, hey, how's it going? And walk away. But I see those guys talking, and they're talking about the organization, right? That's what you want from people in your front office. Hey, what do you got down in this? Or what do you think about this guy? Or, any of that is going to give your manager a perspective of what the organization has and what they need, right? So if they're saying, hey, what do we have catching wise? They're going to know that there's not a lot there. And no one that you look at and go, hey, this guy's going to be the next guy. There's some guys that could develop into that, kind of like Victor Caratini did, which Victor was more or less just a good backup. He wasn't a starter, but still he was a good backup. But he came from kind of like the same spot as like a Pablo or a Ballesteros, and then turned it into that. And so what are the Cubs going to do in that aspect? But I want to hear from you. 708-381-2100 on the show right now. The phone lines are open. Let me ask you guys this. What time is a good time to do this? And the reason that we can't do it at night is because, most of the games are either in the afternoon or in the evening, right? Tell me that. Give me an opinion on that. What do you think? When would you like to have a show like this? If we did it more than once a week, if we tried to do it multiple times a week, when do you want this? What would work with your schedule the best? And give me your input there. And I'm going to start grinding out on some of these questions that you guys have in the comment section. Tony wants to know, who can we call up to put this team on fire? And I mean, I feel like that's Pete Crow Armstrong. And they're going to have to wait until he's eligible to come back unless somebody's, obviously injured. And I'm glad that he's gone down to the minor leagues and just torn the cover off the ball. What's going on now, and you guys know this too, because we talked about it so much, is that is that true? Did Bill Walton pass away? Is that real? If that's real, that I'm heartbroken by that. I have to Google that. Anyway, as a fellow deadhead, love Bill Walton. Yeah, from cancer. How about that? Well, prayers to the Walton family. I'll tell you, man, you talk about a guy that I always like to watch on the NBA. Not a big NBA guy, but just because he might break in the stories about the Grateful Dead, I really like him. And if you haven't seen the special on Bill Walton on ESPN, you need to check it out. But that's sad news. Thanks for sharing that, Jordan. Really appreciate it. Who would you move at the deadline? Would you be afraid to trade, Owen Casey, who I think is, if I'm the Cubs, this is a great comment, Jim. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But would you trade Owen Casey, who I feel like is going to be your right fielder of the future, and I think a star player? Would you want to give up James Triantos, who's in Double-A right now, was the Arizona Fall League Player of the Year last season, or MVP or whatever? Great bat to ball skills. I mean, you talk about just a pain in your side because he can hit everything. Would you be willing to give one of those two guys up? I mean, would you trade Pete Crow Armstrong? And would that make sense to you? What if someone, you can't trade Ian Happ, but would you trade someone else that's on the starting, the starting nine normally? Nico, would you trade him? Who would you trade? Prospects? Would you trade regular players? How about some of the starters? I mean, the Cubs have an abundance of starters right now. Would you trade Javier Assad? Would you, and those are questions. I mean, if you want to get value back, sometimes you got to give up something good to get something good. Would you be willing to do that? And I think those are all legitimate questions at this point, as far as how this team's going. All right, let me bring this up. Jim, thank you for asking me this. He says, how about a few words on Gary Hughes? I think he's in your opening video. He is. So Gary was the special assistant to Jim Hendry with the Cubs. And he was like a baseball, scouting savant, right? He was one of so Baseball America, I'll start here. Baseball America made a list of scouts. And they said, these 10 scouts are the best of last century. Right. And you saw Branch Rickey of the Dodgers. I'm guessing Buck O'Neill was on there, right? He look at the guys that Buck got, including Billy Williams. Gary was this guy that came up with a deal. He went to Sarah High School out in the Bay Area. And I want to say it was Jim Fergozzi that he went to high school with. And Gary would invite me during spring training to this gathering of all of his high school friends at the old Don and Charlie's, which was the baseball hangout in Arizona, in Scottsdale. It's not there anymore. It's a hotel, but this place was amazing. It was just where all the baseball people went. I mean, Willie Mays would sign autographs and the foyer come into that place a lot. I mean, I saw him there a ton. But Gary figured out at a young age that if you take athletes, like a guy that's really great at football or really great at basketball or hockey or something else, right? But is also good at baseball, that you can develop that guy, those great athletes, if they're just playing baseball, to be great baseball players. He was known, like, he got to be friends with John Elway. I don't know if he drafted John Elway or he was part of drafting him, but he knew John's dad. And um, Tom Brady was from out there, he talk about that, like trying to get him to go to the Expos. He was with the Expos, helped build that team that didn't get to play in the World Series because of the strike. And they probably would have gotten there, right, with Pedro Martinez and all those guys. He helped build the Marlins. His son Rock is the clubhouse guy for the Marlins. His son Sam is national cross checker for the Yankees. Great people. His son, by the way, Rock, is married to Craig Counsell's sister. How about that for a connection? But Gary loved me and I loved him back. I got to know him doing games and having him on as a guest, and then talking about this kind of stuff where we just talk about what makes players great or why you like certain guys. And we just struck up a friendship. We did a podcast together, which was amazing. Listening to him kind of break down how, why he liked this player or what about this player, tell stories and stuff like that. I wish that I miss Gary. He passed away during COVID, so we didn't really get to have a funeral. They did do a service for him, and he's missed, man. I mean, like, you see him in there. He's the guy that Len Casper and I are sitting next to in the open. He came and hung out with us on our Cubs, one of our old Cubs pod shows when we were doing Cubs baseball during spring training on Cubs.com. But love Gary, man. I can't sit here and tell you enough great things about him, but he made you laugh all the time. Not only was he a great baseball person, but what he was known for was that he treated everyone with respect. He knew the doorman, he knew the president of the team, he knew the owner, and treated everybody the way that, the same. Just like, hey, you respect him, so you got respect. And then you learned a lot about life and baseball from him. So thanks for bringing that up. Really love talking about him. Yeah, Bill Walton passing away. I know we're kind of just getting into that. Talking about guys you wouldn't trade. Born to Run 99 says, no, you're not going to trade Canario. You're not going to trade Casey. Maybe not. I don't know. See, I think that Alexander Canario is a guy that could get traded. I think that they look at the way that the outfield is right now in the organization. So you got the four guys that are on the big league roster. Seiya Suzuki is obviously signed more than just this year. Cody Bellinger has a question mark, but there's no way that he's not going to opt back into that contract unless he absolutely kills it in the second half of the season. $30 million for what he's given the Cubs this year is definitely in his favor and not in the Cubs' favor. He, since the injury, hasn't really put up much. Ian Happ, it is what it is there. Mike Tauchman's been pretty good. I mean, I would keep him. I think he'll be a free agent at the end of the year, but I mean, wouldn't you want to re-sign him? So he might go, he might stay. But then you got Pete Crow Armstrong up and coming. And then you got Owen Casey, who's going to be ready to be in the big leagues sometime this year or next year. I mean, he's close. He's beating it up again. And Iowa is one of the youngest players in the league. He hits for power. He's got so much of thoughts. So big time there. I don't think I'd trade him, and I would definitely, if I'm deciding between him and Canario, I'm going to keep Casey. And then you got Kevin Alcantara as your big outfield prospect in Double-A. Still got a ways to go. The guy just gets on these streaks where you can't get him out. Long and lanky, kind of like a Dave Winfield looking dude. When he but he can hit the inside pitch, which is really amazing. He got off to a slow start, and then there's just times where he is unbelievable. So I'm thinking that you got to decide between Canario and him. What are you going to do there? I don't know, unless you feel like you could trade Owen Casey. And if you did that, you're taking a big risk. You better get a huge reward back if you traded him. So that's kind of where you are outfield wise. Jordan said, hearing the word cancer reminds me of rhino. And again, the phone lines are open if anybody wants to jump in, test these things out. We heard from Rick, and and you guys that watch our shows every day. Thank you. I mean, really, it's like, that's what this is all about, right? Kind of having a voice where we can talk baseball. You know, I'm watching Marquee last week, the Cubs lose. And then the post-game show, you know, they have, you know, one of the hosts is like, oh, they lost, and the play of the day are puppies. And I'm going, I mean, that's just not where we are here. Puppies. I don't want to see puppies. I want to talk about what solutions we have to fix the problems that this team is dealing with right now. You know, what puppies and, you know, and all that stuff is just not, that's not Cubs baseball to me. This is Cubs baseball. Get in here and tell us who do you think? Where are you going to go to try to get somebody to score a run when you lose 1-0? It's not puppies. You know, I mean, you're not going to win the division because somebody brought puppies into the studio. Okay. That's why it's fun to have a place where you can go and just get serious about what kind of baseball organization that we have and how we can take that organization, put those guys in the big leagues and succeed. Or if you're trading players, what you're giving up to get what you need back. Shy Cubs 557, Casey, Horton, Triantos, Shaw should be untouchable. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that the bigger that list gets, the harder it's going to be to complete a trade. You know, like you're going to have to give up some players. Now, one of the biggest criticisms that I had of Theo Epstein when he was in charge was that he traded away all the good players. And you trade away all these guys, and then all of a sudden you don't have anybody to jump up when you're going through something like this. So having a good farm system should be helping the Cubs right now, as they're honestly, they're scuffling so much. Yeah, and this is the point that Evil Wax is making, right? The problem is that most teams want your untouchables, right? Because they don't want to just get crap players back. They want guys that are going to come in and make a difference. All right, let's go back to the phone line again. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Matt. I'm calling from Texas.
What's up, Matt?
You know, I love the show. I watch it every day. I appreciate what you offer. My best buddy and I, he's actually a broadcaster, and we watch a lot of Cubs. We went down to see the Cubs for 2 weeks in spring training. We've gone to see, you know, we've gone to Wrigley. He lives in Iowa. Lifelong Cubs fan. Long story short, love the team, have loved the team. 53 years old, used to go with my grandparents, my dad, my mom. Just, I love talking about the Cubs. And I honestly think what you were saying is who should be untouchable? Nobody besides Cade Horton. That's it. Everybody else, what have they really, I mean, like you said, we can't be too picky. If we really want to get what we really want to get, in my humble opinion, that young man has shown what you need to show to be untouchable. Everybody else, we've got to be very real about what we could get for them. That's my humble opinion.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you're going to make a big trade and you want to get back a player that can make an impact, you're going to probably have to give up something. I mean, think about last year, how hard it was to make trades. The Cubs gave up a guy who's become pretty much an everyday player in Nelson Velasquez, and they got back Jose Cuas, you know, and that doesn't seem like a very good deal to me, but that was kind of how the market was last year. You know, so the better the prospect, I guess, the more value that you would get back in return. And depending on what the position was and how long that player is going to be part of the organization, I guess matters too, right? I mean, they need catching, but you don't want to get a rental. Yep. You got to have somebody that's going to be there for a while, right?
For sure. And listen, this is going to be terribly unpopular, but I mean, do we let Saya be average forever, or do we try to do something when maybe he actually could really be of some value? We've got an outfield stocked with guys. Alcantara, I saw him playing left field in the summer for multiple games. We saw Tauchman playing all over that outfield. PCA is an incredible young man that just needs an opportunity. He is an outstanding. He makes any guy in left field or right field instantly better because of what he can cover. His bat will get better. Put Belly over at first, because as great as Bush looked all through for most of spring training, for a lot of the start of the season, it's just time. What are we waiting on then? We can't expect these pitchers to win every game for us. We got to get runs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm as frustrated as you guys are watching the offense, and some of the at-bats just aren't even competitive, and I get it. There's some pretty tough pitchers. I mean, we've ran into from Paul Skeen's past. It seems like there's a good pitcher against the team every night, but you got a professional hitter. Somebody's got to be a pro and get on base and make something happen. I mean,
and we've got sorry.
No, go ahead.
We've got young guys too. We've got our Paul Skeens is a Cade Horton waiting to come up. Ben Brown is an excellent young pitcher. Saw him throw the cover off the ball all summer long. I know they don't want to rush Cade. How rushed was Paul? Pretty rushed. I mean, let's just say, hey, if we need these kids, we keep talking about, how great the deep the farm system is. Well, let's just start getting out shovels and digging. How deep really is it? We've had, I'm losing his name. He's an outstanding young center fielder, shortstop playing behind. He hasn't played. He's been sitting there for a week, just rotting up there, not getting any AB. Thank you, sir. Yes. Losing at bats, just left over right. He was outstanding in the summer. Another kid that needs time.
Yeah. Well, I agree, man. When they called him up, this is the issue. Nico gets hurt, and now you got Miles Masterboni and what's the other guy? Nick Madrigal is your middle infield. Why not just put him on the IL, go get Vasquez, let him get healthy, and let Vasquez play
100%.
shortstop? Vasquez is better at shortstop than Nico anyway. And honestly, I think that he could rival Dansby. I think you're going to see that. The guy's amazing defensively, the arm, the footwork, the speed. He's good. We won't know because that's not what happened. We had Miles Masterboni and Nick Madrigal, and that seemed to be like when all of this stuff started happening, right? So then what makes no sense to me, Max, is then all of a sudden those guys come back and then we make a move to bring him up. It's like, well, what are we doing here? I mean, why did we just do this? This is the move that should have been made a week ago.
Experiment end?
Right.
When does it end? He was bad all summer. I mean, I watched him just be bad all summer. I mean, Wisdom hit one walk-off down there. And so many guys have just been so hurt. Like, if we don't start utilizing Luis, if we don't start utilizing AC, if we don't start digging into that farm team and start, okay, if we've got depth, well, let's get the shovels out and start digging. If that's what we have, we need to probably use that. And if we're not going to use it, well, what's the point of having it if we're not ever going to trade it away for something that can get us something?
Yeah, right. No, I'm with you. I mean, it's decision time on this season because it's either do or die now. Either let's do something or let's not.
And are we really playing for this season, do you think, Mick? Do you think we're playing for this season? Or do you think, the all standing behind the door this entire time has been, well, this team is really not constructed for this season. It's really constructed for next season or for a season or two away from now. And if that's the case, they just come out and be honest with it,
Yeah.
I know you can't say that we're giving up on the season because no baseball fan gives up on their team.
Right. But see, I don't think that's the case. I mean, if that's the case, you're not paying for Cody Bellinger to come back. You're going to put Pete Crow Armstrong in the outfield and live and die by his struggles and successes, right? If that's the case, do you go out and sign Dansby Swanson to this, 7-year enormous contract a couple of years ago when the team was worse than it is now? I feel like last year I think if we had Craig Counsell last year, we'd have made the playoffs. And that's how close it was. So I think that they really expect to win. And I mean, knowing Tom Ricketts, he wants to win. I'm just telling you, he does not want to go through another of these rebuilds where you lose on purpose and, and try to stockpile talent like Baltimore did to get to where they're at. We did to get to the World Series in 2016. I think he really feels like that the Cubs can win now. You don't go out and pay a manager the most money in the history of paying a manager if you don't think that the team can win now. So that's what makes this even more frustrating, because this is supposed to be.
I wonder why. Do you think there's a good reason why we're slow playing Cade? Like, I just, other people, let's just take Skeens, for instance, because he was so effective and he is so young. Mm-hmm. I get it. We're slow playing him. But is it because we don't want the contract to be where it's got to be too early, or is it just because that's what he may need? But God, when you watch him play, when you watch him play with the Smokies, when you watch him play in Iowa, mm-hmm. Boy, the kid sure looks like he could be of use to us right now immediately.
Well, look,
perhaps I'm wrong.
I'll say this, okay? Paul Skeens is a phenom. He didn't need one day in the minor leagues. How about him blowing everyone away and just telling hey, I'm tired of your pitch, your pitch restrictions. I'm wasting my time here. I need to be in the big leagues. I don't think that Cade Horton is quite there yet. I think he's got to get a little bit better with his secondary pitches. And he's not going to overpower guys like Skeens throwing, 101 at your knees with a ball that's like snaking. He's just a different type of, he's a different type of star pitcher, mm-hmm. But he is a star pitcher. And when he gets there, what they want is they want him to stay there and go right into the rotation. The guy has the potential to be legitimately like the Cubs ace for a long time. But I don't think, when he was in Double-A, he was great. He got the Triple-A and they hit him around a little bit, and you can tell every start he's getting better and better and better. And he knows. He told us on the show, like when we interviewed him, like the change up, the second and third and fourth pitch, you work on those all the time. Slider's his best pitch. Fastball is the second best pitch. He pitches mean. He's good, but those other pitches are important as well. So I don't think he's quite there yet, but I agree with you that if I'm the Cubs, I'm not trading him. I'm just not. I'm gonna ride it out with Cade Horton because I feel like he's he's one of the best pitching prospects that they've had in 20 years.
Yeah, he's my untouchable as well. I think everybody else. And I know it's unpopular to say, hey, until Seiya really, really, I don't know why I wouldn't put everybody out there unless it's going to cost me a fortune. Ian has us backed into a corner right now, but what could we do?
I didn't like that signing either. I'm not going to lie. I didn't. I've been surprised that he's won back-to-back Gold Gloves and, and all that stuff. I liked him at the leadoff spot because he gets on base, but I don't know. When you look at what the organization has at its disposal, signing someone to play left field long-term just didn't make sense to me. Plain and simple, Yeah,
it's hard because when you look at left fielders, it's like you can't really name five that are changing some, it's just not the position right there right now.
Yeah.
And to be handcuffed with that, it's just tough.
Yeah, well, you roll through
and
that
what's
spot.
Really tough is Kyle Schwarber, who, maybe he's got his defensive woes, but if you put PCA out there, well, that takes a third of the left field away from him. Boy, that would have looked real nice. I hate to say it, but that's just an observation.
Hey.
Armchair quarterbacking years later.
Yeah. Look, man, I know what you're saying, though. Like, I remember people talking about Willie Mays playing for the Birmingham Black Barons, and the stories are very similar to Pete Crow Armstrong, that basically Willie was so fast and so good. He just showed up where the ball was. And they had this was obviously before he was with the Giants. He was just a kid, but he had those ball hawking skills, and they would put him out there. I think the guy's name was Piper Davis, bad knees, couldn't move. And Willie Mays would basically play center, left, and right. Pete can do that. All at the same time, and I know the analytics crowd, they have their analytics that they can go back and look at, and that's great. I have my own two eyes and I can see it. First, step quickness is as good as anybody I've ever seen. He's got instincts like as good as anybody. I used to watch Sam Fold work so hard on crack of the bat, going to where the ball is going to land, right? He would just turn around and like head down, run to the spot. Pete Crow Armstrong does that, and he does it like it's just been bred into him, you know? And I remember Owen Casey saying to me, hey, this guy made me better as an outfielder because he took playing the outfield so seriously. And you go, well, you're a pro, you're supposed to do that. Yeah, but it doesn't always happen that way. You know, like a lot of guys are so worried about hitting that they forget that there's a fielding aspect of it. There's a base running aspect of it. I love watching Pete Crow Armstrong play the outfield. So I wouldn't mind that at all. I mean, honestly, his speed changes the game.
He was so great in the backfields in the summer. There was rarely a time when the ball was hit to left or right when he wasn't 1 or 2 steps away from the guy catching the ball, and he probably could have caught it. That's just, I mean, like you said, his quickness is absolutely amazing. And unless you're standing right there at the net or on the field, you don't really pick that up just watching it on television. It's not the same as watching him run live. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And you could therefore put a much better hitter out there. And that's why I brought up Schwarber, because, you know, I mean, everybody knows he's not the best defensive player, but God, would we love to have a bat like that right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Max, great to hear from you on this Memorial Day, brother. Thank you for calling and watching, and stick with us, man. I hopefully the Cubs win tonight. It would make all of us feel a lot better.
No, I mean, we're praying for it. We'll see what happens. Appreciate all you do, Mick. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Happy Memorial Day, folks.
Thank you. Great call. Appreciate it. Let's go back to the phone lines again and talk some more Cubs baseball. Who's this and where you calling from?
Yeah, hi, this is Mike Murphy. I'm calling from Conway, Arkansas.
What's up, man? How did you become
a
Cubs
what's going
fan?
on, Mick? It's nice.
Yeah, nice to talk to you.
I grew up in Chicago. I was born there, and I've been a Cubs fan since I was 9. I'm 73. And I'm going to tell you, man, I don't understand a couple of things. Basic baseball, like when you learned when we was in Little League, how to bunt, how to get when you got a guy on second base and you can't score him for 40% of the time, there's a problem. Craig Counsell apparently doesn't like to bunt, but if you need to know the basics of baseball, especially when you're not scoring runs. The way to win is you score more runs than the other guy. Now, something else that's been bothering me is all these injuries. How do these guys get injured with all of the equipment and all the medicine and all the technology they have? I wonder if that COVID shot, now this might be way out there far in left field, but I'm beginning to wonder if that COVID shot hasn't done something to maybe some of the muscles, the ligaments, because I was listening to a radio show where they did a study on that, and the college kids, a lot of them were having problems with dying. They said that there was like a 700% increase. I was listening to Chris Plant on the radio, and he said that. But the bottom line for the Cubs is they're not hitting, they're not playing basic baseball, and they've got guys that can do that, but they're not using them. I don't care if you're paying somebody $20 million a year or not. If it's not working and he's not hitting, pinch him. Put his butt on the bench. Get somebody in there who knows how to bunt, who can get guys in. Because they have gone from a good record to mediocre record, and they're playing mediocre baseball. They're making errors. Their pitching has been sustaining them. But what happens if the pitching goes into a funk? Then what?
Yeah.
And
so
it's just as a fan, a long-time fan, I just don't understand why Craig Counsell doesn't do some of this stuff. I don't know if he's having his strings pulled by somebody up above him or what, but they are in a problem now, and they better get out of it. I know it's still early, and I'm sure that they're going to get out of it, but to me, from what I'm seeing, after watching the Cubs for a long time, this is the same team basically they had last year. Yeah. I mean, right now, at this point, and they're better than that. Their pitching has been good. If the guys aren't hitting, let somebody play who can hit. I mean, it's pretty simple, basic baseball. Everything that we learned in playing Little League. I don't understand why, these guys get big contracts. They get hurt all the time. Well, there's other guys in AAA that can come up and play. One Casey, PCA, some of the other guys they got. Velasquez, why wasn't he playing? I mean, it just baffles me. the Craig Counsell's a good manager, I'm sure, but it makes me wonder about Ross. Everybody was on Rossi last year. I'm seeing the same thing. Same thing with Counsell.
Right.
Just like when they called Bellinger out yesterday, which was unbelievable, out of the base path. You got to be kidding me. And Counsell doesn't go. He should have been thrown out of the game. He should have went out there and thrown a hissy fit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it
I
was
didn't
just
like
crazy.
that either. Yeah. Well, great
I mean,
call.
he wasn't out of the baseline. Are you kidding me?
Oh, I know. But that when things aren't going your way, that's the crap that happens. I mean, like
Exactly.
I mean, it's like nothing is. You make 2 bad pitches aside, and you give up 4 runs, and then today, yesterday we couldn't score. We hit home runs, no one's on base. It's like it's the stuff that happens when you're in a funk, and that's certainly frustrating. Maybe you go out there and get thrown out just to kind of send a message. I don't know. I mean,
well, that's what some of the managerial decisions, like betting a Maya with guys on that. I mean, the Cubs have to do something about the catching, whether they need to make a deal or call somebody up or something, but it's not working right now.
No.
And I'm not bad mouthing Yan Gomes. Bless his heart, he was great last year. He helped the Cubs and Amaya. He can frame the ball, but that's it.
Yeah, I'm with
Are
you.
you going to keep a guy under that can frame the ball, but he can't get no RBIs? It's just, man, it's just heartbreaking to watch these guys.
Yeah, they're just
automatic, exactly.
Don't hit into a double play.
Every time they come up, it's an out.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, thanks for calling in, man. Happy Memorial Day. I'm going to chew on some of the stuff you talked about, and appreciate it, man.
Yeah, do some research on that COVID shot. I mean, it might be, it might be nothing, but I'm beginning to wonder. I really am. I'm beginning to wonder. And I did hear something about a study that was done on college and high school kids that had a huge increase in deaths. Just might be something to look at, might not. I don't know.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Mick. You got a great show, buddy.
Appreciate
go
it.
Cubs, huh?
Hey, go Cubs. Let's get it done. All right, good call. I know some of you guys are like rolling your eyes about the COVID shot. I don't know what the answer is. I'll tell you this. Don't ever underestimate something. I mean, I look at it like when I was in college, we used to get into these discussions on stuff and learn a lot about things that I might not agree with just by thinking about it and looking into it. I don't know what's going on with the hamstrings. Well, does that mean that that the hamstring injuries are equated to that? I don't know. I mean, I tend to think that these hamstring injuries have to do with the way that you prepare for the season and the off season. You guys probably know I went to Alabama. I've covered Alabama, not quite as long as I've covered the Cubs, but it was my alma mater. And Alabama had issues with injuries like this. They went out and they changed their whole staff of it wasn't hamstring injuries, but it was injuries during football games. And then all of a sudden the injuries went way down. They started to do a lot more sports science stuff. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but I think there is a correlation that I don't think it's a coincidence that everybody's having a muscle injury. I just don't. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm just telling you. And they went and got the sports science guys, by the way, came from Indiana. That they did a great job at Indiana. And then they go there. And now those guys are out doing their own things. I think they still have one of those guys left, but I don't know. But at the end of the day, if you're the Cubs, you have to figure out what the hell is going on with these hamstring injuries, because you can't have a team when half of your players that you're paying millions and millions of dollars to are always hurt with hamstring injuries. All right, let's go back to the phone lines again. Got some of you guys ready to jump in and talk some Cubs baseball. Who's this and where are you calling from?
All right, let's go back to the phone lines again. Got some of you guys ready to jump in and talk some Cubs baseball. Who's this and where are you calling from? All right, let's go back to the phone lines again. Got some of you guys ready to jump in.
All right.
And talk some Cubs baseball. Who's this and where are you calling
Call
from?
back and turn off your computer, and we'd love to hear from you. All right, back to the phone lines again. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Ron in Riverside, California.
What's up, Ron?
Not much. I just got three things that I would do today to make the Cubs better. Number one, get rid of Kyle Hendricks. He's a wasted roster spot. I don't know who we're going to replace him with. Maybe Klaus for a while until Jordan Wicks comes back. Number 2, get rid of Madrigal. He doesn't do anything except hit singles, and he doesn't do that enough. Number 3, get rid of Wisdom. All he does is hit home runs, and he doesn't do it enough. Those are 3 roster spots that are wasted on this team.
Ron,
Number 4.
Ron, let me stop you there. I'm not going to disagree with any of that. I would much rather have the young guys in the organization taking those at bats and getting those opportunities. And as much as I love Kyle Hendricks, he gives up runs every time he's in there. You know, like it's just the game. You get old. I'm sorry. I mean, it's the way we all get old. There's going to be a day where I'm not going to be able to come on here and talk, or I'm not going to be able to do play-by-play because you get old and your skill set diminishes, right? And then Wisdom can't do anything but hit home runs, and he's not hitting home runs. I agree with that. And Madrigal is a double play machine. And you guys in the comments section kept saying that. And then I'm watching and I'm going, you're right. Every time he's up, he's going to hit soft contact at a middle infielder. Sometimes if you got guy at third, he'll hit it to the third baseman so you get out at home. Right? Ron, you still there?
Yeah, and also,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still here. Also, Jan Gomes is a problem. Father Time is beating him up right now. I don't know what to do about that. But we need to bring up PCA. We need to bring up either Canario or Davis. We need to bring up a pitcher to replace Hendricks. But one of the other things that I would do is that outfielder that we do bring up, I'd put him in right field. I'd make Suzuki the DH because Suzuki is a bad outfielder.
That'd make a
Everybody
spot for
says
Owen
how
Casey.
great he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. There's too many spots that their players are just putting the wrong. They're just have the wrong players in the wrong spots.
Yeah. Look, I think you make great points, man. I mean, I'm with you. You know what? I'd rather live or die with the young players than trying to hang on to some of these guys that just aren't good. You know, I mean, at least if they're, and this has been the frustrating part of being someone that understands and knows what we have in the organization. It's really hard to look at these guys that you're telling, hey, when you're ready, you'll get an opportunity when they're not doing that. And they say, well, you know, you got to force your way on the roster. Yeah, but you know what? They're forcing their way on the roster. Now, Pete Crow Armstrong's done everything he needs to do at Iowa. And it's time to have him in the big leagues. Owen Casey's this close. And look, Seiya Suzuki's not that good in right field. He's okay. It's like those line drives right at him. He just doesn't see him for some reason, you know? And I don't even know how healthy he is, to be honest with you. I mean, he came back, but it doesn't seem like something's not clicking right now. He's getting some hits, but he doesn't look like he did before the injury, right?
Yeah. One other point I do want to make on the injuries, I don't think it has to do with the COVID shot or anything like that. But here's my conspiracy theory. I've read up a little bit. I think they're drinking too much coffee. All we ever hear about these guys outside of baseball is coffee this, coffee that. Coffee causes dehydration in your muscles. You don't rehydrate. What happens?
Yeah, muscle.
You pull a muscle.
Yeah, right. Well, baseball is a game.
Seiya coffee, Hap coffee, Tyon coffee, Horner coffee. That's all I hear about these people outside the field.
Yeah, I don't know if they drink coffee or not, but you're right about coffee. It does cause dehydration. There's no telling what the culprit is, but that's honestly, I mean, all of these things I'm open to. You know, when you do like a science project, you know, you have to consider everything to get to the right answer. You know, you eliminate things as you go on. It's like, hey, you know what? Here's something, that's out. You know, here's something that's out. You know, but you've got to be nimble to play baseball every day. You know what I'm saying? Your body has to be nimble. Football, hey, you can be tight and stocky and just run straight ahead. But in baseball, you've got to be nimble. And if you're not, then, obviously you have injuries. But when you have 2 of your 3 outfielders have had that injury, your star pitcher had that injury. It's like you start to look through, and every time you turn around, somebody's having that same injury. It's like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, and one other thing before I let you go is I've said it on other channels. I might have put it on this channel in the comments, but the Cubs are going to win the division this year, about 87, 88 wins, and they will beat and eliminate the Dodgers in the playoffs.
I love that. And I'm sure out in California, you're not popular for saying that, but keep saying it out in Riverside, because I think we're going to turn it around, and I do think we're going to win the division. I think this is the bumpy patch that we're going through that will eventually get things back right, and we're going to be a good team for having gone through this.
All right. Good talking to you, Mick.
Hey, thank you, Ron. And go Cubs. All right, it's Ron out in Riverside. All right, so I'm going to try one more time with this one. See if they can hear me.
The Cubs.
How's it going?
It's Ron out in Riverside. All right, so I'm going to try one more time with this one. See if they can hear me. The Cubs.
How's it going?
It's Ron out in Riverside. All right, so I'm going to try one more time with this one.
I don't know. It sounds like I'm on a loop or something. Looping myself back through. But anyway, all right. Yeah, Ron from Riverside. Lots to get into there. First off, I got to tell you, John, you have made one of my favorite comments. John said he would call in today, but he's too hungover. Look, that's what this weekend seems to be, kind of, hey, I'm going to go out and have a few beers. I've been with you myself this weekend. So, John, next time you can call in, man, and I would love to hear from you. How about this super chat, man? Thank you guys. And as we kind of get doing more of these live shows, I can't tell you how much this means to the channel. As we kind of build this channel up, we'll have a lot more money to invest in it. And, and that means, having people on and, having better setup and all that stuff, all of it costs. So thank you so much, Jets Cubs fan 29. Hey, Mick, love your contact as an ex-minor leaguer for the Expos. Well, it's been a while, right? We all know it's a matter of time till the bats come together. However, I think Hap is expendable. Matter of time till Seiya hits. Look, I think that a lot of people feel like that if the Cubs could move out Ian Happ, it really wouldn't make much of an impact on the team's success. But he's got a no trade clause. So he would have to approve a trade to go somewhere else. And so would he do that or not? I don't know. But I also think Seiya is going to hit as well. And I hope that happens sooner than later, because he's the kind of guy that makes the difference. He's the kind of guy that can carry you when, obviously you're not hitting. So need somebody to do that. Let's take a couple more comments. And guys, it was great taking calls today. And it's something that we're going to continue to do on the show. I mean, I think doing a call-in show a lot more than less is the future. I think that we need to kind of get together and have these sessions where we kind of get ready for the games and figure out exactly how we can get this thing moving in the right direction. Edward says you can't take my coffee away. I had surgery. You guys might know this. Last year, I had an emergency appendectomy surgery, and I can't drink coffee anymore. I drank it every day. Love it. I miss it, but it just doesn't sit with me now. I don't know that I ever had like a strained muscle. Now, I know that with these, which I kind of drink these now, if you drink too many of those, you do get muscle cramps from those. And I'm sure that it could lead to stiff muscles and all of that. So my point is this, is that when you're trying to get to the bottom of something that's going wrong, you just have to be open-minded in what could be causing it, and that's just part of the scientific process. of having things. Hey, here's an idea. What do you think? Well, whatever. I mean, it's just kind of the way that life works in that area. But remember when Big Z had to eat bananas in the dugout? How about Turk Wendell used to have to brush his teeth? You remember that? The guy would pitch and he would have to brush his teeth in between innings. Oh wow, here's Chad. He says, as a personal trainer, he's actually right. It does cause strained muscle dehydration. See, that's what I'm saying. I didn't know that, but I mean, it makes sense when you guys say that. And Chad, you're someone that's in that business. We can all learn from, ideas. Hap, yeah, and John says this too. Hap hit 2 home runs yesterday. So, hopefully that's the beginning of him starting to play again. And then this is the last thing we're going to talk about today before we break out of here. But let me ask you guys this before we get into this next topic. If you haven't yet, please give us a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and get it. I love having you guys in the comments section. And you guys know that this channel has been our place to get on here and debate. I love it. I love it when we disagree. I love it when we get into spirited conversations. My biggest thing is let's just all have respect for each other. Like, even if we just disagree, let's have this place where we can go and talk Cubs baseball and, leave the, if we lose, look at puppies to somebody else. Let's get over here and figure out how we can win some games, how we can make a move, where we need some help, who's getting the job done. Right. Turk, he also liked Listerine. I remember seeing him just like brushing his teeth, really hard in the dugout. I don't know. He had to keep that breath perfect, right? To go out there and get the job done. Trying to find that last comment that I took off here. Said these guys are drinking plenty of water. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing in the clubhouse, but Rob says this. All right, who would be willing to take Hap's contract? And that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, how do other teams value him? If I was the Pirates, I would probably say, hey, man, I don't want to ever face this guy again. We can't get him out. But then there's other teams that, he's really not a factor in. And part of it's just getting hot. Hitting's contagious. You guys have heard that. And I think the reason why hitting's contagious is I feel like hitting's contagious because, when one guy gets going, it makes the rest of the lineup more comfortable. And I think that's kind of how it goes down. You get comfortable and, boom, somebody else is comfortable. And then all of a sudden everybody's locked in. All right, guys, that is going to do it for the show today. Cubs play again at 3:00. Thank you for the super chat, Jet Cubs fan. Get in the comments section. Tell me what you guys think. Again, I appreciate all of you for being a part of this show. And also, I want your opinions. What time of day do you think that we should do this? I was thinking maybe having something like this at least a couple times a week, maybe more, where we get on and just kind of take calls for a while and get into some Cubs baseball that way. But thanks. Go Cubs tonight. Again, if you didn't know, it's a 3-10 matchup against the Brewers. Justin Steele is going to pitch for the Cubs and try to get us back on track again. So thank you. And again, go Cubs, everybody. Let's get this, fingers crossed that today's the day that we get this team moving in the right direction.